Let me know. There we go.
Good to go.
Got it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. It is Monday, November 22nd, and this is the regular board meeting of the Greater Victoria School District number 61. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Just as we get started, the Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Songhees Nation, on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. I would also this evening like to, on behalf of the board, send our thoughts and our wishes to all those affected by the floods and the catastrophic events that have occurred over the last week, flooding and mudslides. Our gratitude to all of those who are helping, all of those who are suffering and struggling through this time. And we wish our best to everybody. And as the rains come back, please everybody stay safe. All right. So thank you very much. Our first item of business tonight is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a mover for that? Trustee Ryan Painter, and a seconder.
Chair, just
Yes.
if I may, before we approve the agenda, I would, with the meeting's consent, withdraw my motion regarding Zoom meetings. As I see on the presenting page of board meetings, a statement that says all meetings will continue on Zoom until the end of the 2022 school year. So if that is indeed correct, I'll withdraw my motion.
All right. Thank you, Trustee McNally. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'm actually still looking for the seconder to that. Trustee McNally, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the agenda, please raise your hands. Okay, all those opposed, please raise your hands. Okay, and that motion is carried. So this evening is special. Our next item on the agenda is our election for the chair, the vice chair, and our provincial appointments. So at this time, I will pass over the chair to our secretary treasurer, Kim Morris, who I don't see.
Thank you.
There you are.
I'm just double checking. Did I hear the acknowledgement?
You did.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so since this is the election of the chair, I'll run this portion of the meeting until a chair is elected. And then I'll pass the gavel to the new chair or the existing chair. So the first order of business is to let you know that Interim Superintendent Deb Whitten and I will be the scrutineers, and trustees have our cell phone numbers with which to text us. And so the first thing we'll ask you to text us is your nominations for chair. So please go ahead and text those to both Deb and I. Okay, we have two nominations. Ann Whitaker, you've been nominated for chair. Do you accept? Oh, I should call for nominations the second time. Sorry about that. And I'll call for nominations for a third and final time. Hearing no other nominations, we have two nominations for chair. Trustee Whitaker, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I will.
And Ryan Painter, you have also been nominated. Do you accept the nomination?
With thanks to my nominator, I do accept.
Okay. So because we have two accepted nominations, we will have a vote for chair. So again, trustees, please send your votes by text to both Deb Whitten and I on our cell phones. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to congratulate Trustee Painter, Ryan Painter, as Chair of the Board of Education. And I will pass the gavel to Ryan.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris, and thank you to Anne as well for not just putting your name forward, but for shepherding us through this period since the summer. I appreciate your work getting us to this point, and I look forward to being here in service of the board for the next year. So I will now move to election of vice chair. As previous, the scrutineers for the election of vice chair will be Secretary Treasurer Morris and Superintendent Whitten. Trustees will text their nomination to Secretary Treasurer Morris and Superintendent Whitten, at which point we will receive the nominations and then we will vote. So I will now open nominations for the election of vice chair of the Greater Victoria School District. This is the first call for nominations. I will now make a call, second call for nominations for vice chair to the Greater Victoria School District Board. And I'll make the third and final call for nominations for vice chair of the Greater Victoria School Board. And I will declare nominations closed. And we will wait for Kim and Deb to let us know who has been nominated.
Chair Painter, we have 2 nominations. We have Rob Painter for Vice Chair, as well as Tom Ferris for Vice Chair.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. I'll go in the order they have been read. Trustee Rob Painter, do you accept your nomination for Vice Chair?
With thanks, I will decline.
Thank you. And I will go to Trustee Tom Ferris. Do you accept your nomination for Vice Chair?
I accept with thanks to my nominator.
Thank you. And seeing as Tom is now the only nominated candidate for Vice Chair, I congratulate Tom Ferris, the Vice Chair-elect or elected Vice Chair of the Greater Victoria School District. And thank you, Tom, for stepping up, and Rob as well, similarly to Trustee Whitaker. Thank you for your time and support of the board these preceding months until now. We'll now move to the election of the British Columbia Public School Employers Association representative. And as previous, we'll follow the same format. You will text your nominee to Secretary Treasurer Morris and Deputy Superintendent Whitten. So I will now call for nominees for BC Public School Employers Association representative from SD61. I will now make a second call for nominations to the British Columbia Public School Employers Association representative. And I will make a third and final call for the British Columbia Public School Employers Association representative. And I will declare nominations closed, and we will wait to hear the nominees.
Chair Painter, we have 2 nominees. We have Trustee Rob Painter, as well as Trustee Vice Chair Tom Ferris.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. First, I'll go in order of reported. Trustee Rob Painter, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, Chair, I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. And Trustee Ferris, do you accept the nomination? Trustee Ferris, I think you're on mute. That's probably not going to be the last time that happens tonight.
Oh, I decline with thanks to my nominator.
Thank you. And so I can declare Trustee Rob Painter, the BC Public School Employers Association representative. Thank you, Rob, for stepping up to fill this role. Very appreciated. We'll now go to the election of the British Columbia School Trustees Association Provincial Councillor, and following similar processes as before, please send your nominee to Kim and Deb. I will now call for nominations to the British Columbia School Trustees Association Provincial Councillor. This is the first call. I will now make the second call for the British Columbia School Trustees Association Provincial Councillor nomination. And I'll make the third and final call for the British Columbia School Trustees Association Provincial Councillor. And I will then declare nominations closed, and we will wait to hear results on nominees.
Chair Painter, we have 1 nominee, Trustee Waters.
Trustee Waters, I am going to make the hopefully not too egregious presumption that you accept the nomination.
With thanks to my nominator.
Thank you, Trustee Waters. As there are no other nominees, Trustee Waters is the BC School Trustees Association Provincial Councillor for SD61. Thank you very much, Trustee Waters, for stepping up to fill that important position. I'll now ask for a motion to destroy the election ballots and text messages. Moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Ferris. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move to A4, approval of the minutes, approval of the October 25, 2021 regular board minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Trustee Leonard. Trustee Duncan, are you seconding, or do you have a point?
I have amendments to the
Okay,
minutes.
we'll just go with getting it on the floor first then. Trustee Ferris, did I see you second that? Thank you, Trustee Ferris. So now I'll go to Trustee Duncan. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, so under, just bear with me a second. So on page 9, under A4, so it's page 9 of the pack-up under A4, which I believe is page 3 of the minutes themselves. I wanted to add or clarify the wording of what is minuted at the moment by adding the following. On August 8th, 2021, at the special board meeting, Trustee Duncan requested an explanation of what led up to the resignations of the chair and vice chair, and was told that an agenda item was not planned, but that the chair indicated that at the next special board meeting, trustees will be invited to speak to it.
Okay, Trustee Duncan, I'm sorry. Are you looking to add that to under A4 from business arising from the minutes from the previous minutes? Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct. That's on
And
page
where did you-
9.
Yes, and where were you wanting that inserted? Under that paragraph on page 9 or above it?
Underneath. So the last paragraph under A4 currently says that Chair Whitaker stated that there was no plan to place this on the agenda, but suggested that Trustee Waters could have the opportunity to speak at a future board meeting. Right there. If we could.
Okay, so
yeah.
Thank you. So the amendment is to add that to the business arising from the minutes of the board meeting from, just having to scroll back and forth here, pardon me, from October 25th. Is there any, so first off, we need a seconder to add that. Do I have a seconder to add that? Trustee Whitaker, thank you. Any discussion on adding that to business arising? Trustee Leonard.
Just the way it's being worded now is that she was obliged to. It said if she wanted to. So it wasn't, it was an invitation. If Trustee Waters wanted to expand on things, she could. But the way it's been worded now in changing of the minutes with that, in my estimation, is that she's obliged to, which I don't think she is. She invited people to contact her directly if they had a question, but.
And no one has.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Leonard. Trustee Waters, did you have anything you wanted to add, or can I go to Trustee Duncan? Trustee Duncan has her hand up again, but I just want to make sure if you have anything you wanted to add there. No? Okay. I'll go to Trustee Duncan. Go ahead. And then Trustee McNally.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm seeking to clarify this point because my understanding of the former chair's response was that an item would be included on the next agenda. And the entire reason I brought this up under business arising from the minutes was because in August at the special board meeting, there was also a commitment that the item would be included on a future board meeting. So last month's business arising was me following up because the commitment made in August at the special board meeting had not been honored. So while I appreciate Trustee Waters' offer to have an informal chat, this is really a matter of board business, and it's a matter of the former chair's role in representing this board. And it's about official business, and it's not, in my view, a matter to be addressed through an informal conversation over the telephone, but rather for the full board to be made aware of what led up to the resignations of the former representatives.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Duncan. I'm going to go to Trustee Waters. Go ahead. Trustee McNally. I'm sorry. Pardon me, Trustee Waters. I actually had Trustee McNally first. Trustee
Yeah.
McNally, and then we'll go to Trustee Waters. Go
It's
ahead.
just fast. I'll just explain that I wasn't at that meeting, so I won't be voting for approval or anything. I wasn't there.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Appreciate the clarification. Trustee Waters, go ahead.
I'm just concerned about how this is being framed as if I have done something wrong or evasive. I don't create the agendas. Nobody has approached me about having an item on an agenda. I have time and time again expressed a willingness to have a conversation wherever that may be, and there has not been an opportunity. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about this. Feels a little like feels a little personal.
Thank you, Trustee Waters. Hopefully we can move on, but I do see Trustee Whitaker with her hand up, and I don't want to make sure she can chime in. Go ahead, Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that this does keep coming up to the board. And as I think Trustee Duncan has said at several different meetings. And what was said was that the chair would be invited or is invited to speak. And at that time, she did say that she would respond and that people could answer. I think that's what happened. I don't know the confusion, but I leave it there.
Thank you. And can I just also ensure, folks, I'm getting some feedback on my end. So if you are not speaking, please be sure to put your Zoom on mute. Thank you very much. So I think this has been canvassed. So I'm going to call the question on amending the previous minutes to add the section Trustee Duncan has requested. Does anybody need clarification on what Trustee Duncan wished to add? Okay, Trustee Hensa would like some clarification. So Trustee Duncan, can you please re-clarify what you wanted to add for those who are going to be voting? Thank you.
Sure. So on the 8th of August, 2021, at the special board meeting, Trustee Duncan requested an explanation of what led up to the resignations of the chair and the vice chair, and was told at the time that an agenda item was not planned, but that the chair indicated that at the next board meeting, we'll invite Trustee Waters to speak to it.
Okay, are we all clear? Alrighty, then I will call the question on adding that to the agenda. All of those in favor, sorry, pardon me, to the minutes. All those in favor on adding that section to the minutes from the previous meeting, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so we have in favor, Trustee Whitaker, Trustee Duncan, the balance opposed, Trustee Rob Painter, and Trustee McNally abstaining.
We can't hear you at all, Brian.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go. I told you it was going to happen again. So we have now back to approval of the minutes. Approval has been moved and seconded. So all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And all those opposed? And abstentions? Okay, so opposed, Trustee Duncan. In favor, the balance with Trustee Painter and Trustee McNally abstaining. Is there business arising from the minutes of October 25th? Seeing no business arising, we can go to community presentations. First is David Fleming, QPBC, Childcare in Schools. Mr. Fleming, welcome. Thank you for coming to us tonight to present. And I will turn the floor over to you for 5 minutes. I will give you a warning. Either I'll wave or I'll put up a 1 and it'll kind of give you an idea of how much time we have left.
Okay, thank you. I just need to share my screen.
Don't worry, the time won't start until you start.
Okay. So good evening. My name is David Fleming. I'm a national rep of CUPE and the childcare coordinator in British Columbia. I'm coming to you this evening from the unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, and I'm living in Vancouver. So I wanted to thank you for your time and hearing this presentation about integrated childcare in BC schools. So as many of you know, too many families lack childcare. Childcare is in a crisis situation in the province. Our existing market system of childcare simply hasn't worked. We've had inadequate supply, an unfair distribution of services. Families struggle with high fees, long wait lists, and fees to be on wait lists. In fact, traditionally, we rarely have more than 20% of the childcare capacity in the province that we need to support children and families in BC. And our fractured patchwork system lacks a centralized planning and is unresponsive to systemic needs. There's been some really great work done on childcare in the Victoria region. And so I draw your attention to the Victoria Working Group on Childcare's work and the District of Saanich, or the communities in the Saanich Peninsula that banded together to study childcare. And what they found was that in both of those regions, they had over 2,000, or a gap of over 2,000 spaces for school-age care, in addition to their other childcare needs. Just this huge gap for the number of spaces needed to support children and family of school-aged kids. And the reports also identified ongoing barriers to creating new spaces. And those barriers are the same in communities across the province, and they're barriers that school districts are uniquely positioned to address. So integration into the school system is better for kids and families, and we can do it quickly and efficiently. School districts are well positioned to provide many spaces in a very quick way. And one of the other key pieces of this is that school-age care has also been left out of the provincial federal framework on childcare. So while there's relief coming in the future on childcare, it is not going to be there for school-aged care. The direct provision by school districts also allows us to better integrate early care and learning into the school day and increases available childcare in the community while delivering a high-quality value-added system. And recent changes to the School Act and licensing regulations around school-age care on school grounds mean that school districts can provide these new spaces very quickly and efficiently. So some of the benefits of integrated childcare in public schools are improved accessibility and few transitions for kids, and enhanced and informed care that's education focused. As I mentioned earlier, that coordination between what's happening in the school day, what's happening in before and out of school care, which is not something that is easy to achieve in our existing system and often doesn't happen, creates more options in communities, and importantly, creates opportunities to recruit and retain high quality education assistants and potentially early childhood educators. And something we all appreciate is increased investment in the public school system. Now, I mentioned earlier, there are significant barriers to creating new spaces across the province in our childcare system, and one of the largest is access to physical space. But in providing school-age care on school grounds in existing schools, we have really no requirement for significant capital investments, and it's a better use of taxpayer-funded facilities.
Just giving you a 1 minute warning there, David.
Okay, yeah. Access to a qualified workforce, which I already mentioned, which is critically lacking in the childcare sector. In terms of new bodies. And we have the ability to create good, high quality jobs instead of the sort of precarious, low paid work that plagues the childcare sector. We have an existing oversight model with management and maintenance and government structures, and we trust the democratic processes of our school districts. And something we can all work on that continues to be a barrier, and that is funding from a senior level of government, but it's an area for partnership. So what CUPE is asking is for the school district to open and operate the critically needed before and after school spaces using district staff and using existing facilities. And we'd ask that the Board of Education call on the provincial government to fully implement the 10-day plan and provide school districts with sustainable funding that would allow them to fully meet the childcare needs in their communities. And I'm at my time, so I guess questions.
David, that was perfect 5 minutes. You have very clearly done this before. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate the discussion and your presentation. Because this is a full board meeting, which normally prioritizes board business, there won't be an opportunity for Q&A, but we certainly would probably be happy to reach out and touch base if there are any members of the board who would like to discuss with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now go to Soren Heinrich, land disposal. Soren, I hope I pronounced that last name properly. I tried to reach back to my German ancestors and see if I could actualize that last name. So Soren, same for you, 5 minutes, and we will turn over to you. I just can't see you on my screen here. Oh, there we go.
Good. Thank you much. Thank you very much, Ryan. Yeah, close, Heinrich. So I'm a resident of Victoria, and I'm addressing the proposed disposal and sale of land at Lansdowne South Middle School. I serve as a community representative on the Boca Creek Initiative Steering Committee since 2006, and I'm a resident. I'm a director of the Friends of Boca Creek Society, and my children attended Richmond School, and I was involved in the previous community consultation regarding the attempt at land disposal in 2007. And I believe that building on this site, the triangle beside Boca Creek, is not in the broad community interest. Given the threat of more frequent rainstorm events, natural areas in the city should be left in their natural state for flood control and mitigation. Given that Boca Creek flows to this property and the importance of this property for flood mitigation, will SD61 consult with local governments, including the downstream municipalities of Oak Bay and Victoria, before disposing of this land? I would like to know more about how the school district climate action emergency action will include stormwater management for climate adaptation and show leadership to students in addressing the climate crisis and environmental stewardship before the land disposal takes place. I respectfully request the school board fulfill their mandate to maintain the property for educational purposes and honor its existing commitments to the Boca Creek Initiative blueprint endorsed by SD61 in 2018, and consider this site for enhanced student outdoor learning similar to what has been achieved at Oak Bay High School. SD61 should not be disposing this land without meeting the ministerial requirements for broad consultation and community and local government dialogue that has not yet taken place. The ministry policy states, Board of Education must consider potential needs for alternative community use and must consult with local government, community organizations, and the public on alternative community uses, and that the minister must approve of disposal before SD61 enters into an agreement to sell. Further, I believe the information SD61 has provided to date is not sufficient assurance the public interest in this property has been taken into consideration. There is not yet enough information for the public to engage effectively in the land disposal process. Please consider from the community perspective how the premature joint media release in mid-October announcing the sales agreement in the local press and the arbitrary November 24th deadline for public input is a very short deadline from the community perspective, causes much consternation, and generates a tremendous amount of volunteer energy and effort to respond effectively. I note that the board indicates in its own consultation policy that it values attitudes and practices that encourage integrity, respect, and trust in all relationships. I wish SD61 will treat this as an opportunity to repair the dialogue with the affected communities, consult with local government and the Boca Creek Initiative at the CRD for an outcome that will support long-standing values already established. In closing, I urge you to slow down the land disposal process, or better, stop this land disposal until a broad, meaningful, and transparent process that fully involves community and educational interests takes place. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Soren. I know I can speak for the board. We appreciate your points of view on this and providing us with your perspective. It's important. I also invite you, if you wish, you can send your statement through to the board so that we can have that. Trustees at sd61.bc.ca. Feel free to send that through to us if you'd like. All right, I will go next to Andrea Glass, land disposal. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Hi, yeah, my name is Andrea Glass, and I live in the Shelburne Valley, and I'm a retired respiratory therapist. So I used to walk across the Lansdowne South and North campus back and forth to go to work. I formerly sat on the BCI steering committee as a community volunteer, and I presently sit on the board of the Camosun Community Association. Also, I'm speaking on my own behalf tonight because I feel that the CCA didn't really get enough information about this sale to properly consult with the neighbors. And I attended Jody Watson's presentation in 2018 to the school board of the Bowker Creek Blueprint. And at the time I was heartened about the enthusiasm that the trustees showed and the subsequent endorsement of the blueprint. So when recently I read in the newspaper that SD61 entered a sales agreement with the Hospice Society, I was actually gobsmacked that the community association didn't get any information on this prior to getting into a sales agreement. And so in 2007, SD61 placed the entire Richmond School campus on the open market as surplus to need, and due to significant opposition and lobbying by the public, the property was taken off the market. And now it turns out that the former Richmond Elementary School has become the South Campus for the Lansdowne Middle School. The Shelburne Local Area Plan identified in 1998, the Shelburne Local Area Plan identified this neighborhood already as deficient in public green space that did not meet the standard for community open space. Saanich also included in their appendix a map that shows the triangle for sale as a proposed park. So the sale of this property would further decrease the ratio of green space to citizens, and the area around this property is ongoing and predicted to densify significantly, so further decreasing the ratio, as I said. And recently the sale of the 7.3 acre the Lansdowne North Campus has again decreased the available green space. So the creek is 120 meters of unculverted creek going through the Richmond School or Lansdowne South Campus. So it's one of the bigger pieces of public land. On both sides of the creek, it's public land. So selling the triangle to the Hospice Society, essentially a private entity, would take the land out of the public hands. This would unnecessarily complicate future restoration of the creek. There's also a 7.3 meter statutory right-of-way in favor of Saanich on the east side of the creek for a future multi-use greenway. If SD61 disposes of the property to the west of the creek, how does that then configure a publicly accessible right-of-way and accommodate and integrate the minimum 10-meter streamside protection enhancement area with school and community activities on the remaining property? So hundreds and thousands of dollars have been spent of public money, and thousands of hours and staff and volunteer time have been spent on improving the health of the creek. The public clearly shows a significant interest in the health of the green blue space around the creek. SD61.
Andrea, sorry, I'm just giving you a 1 minute warning, Andrea.
Okay. SD61 has been a stakeholder in this process, yet the proposed sale seems to ignore years of work by the other stakeholders. So in conclusion, I ask you, please consider the need of the creek and the need of the neighborhood for public green space, something that will get more precious with densification, and they don't make any more public green space. Thank you. That's my report. Thanks for your consideration.
Thanks a lot, Andrea. I really appreciate your comments and perspective on this. And I invite you, similar to Mr. Heinrich, to send us your statement if you'd like, trustees@sd61.bc.ca, and it will go to the board. But thank you for your presentation tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, trustees, we're moving on to B, correspondence. As you'll see, we have 9 items of correspondence. And I wanted to check with trustees to see if there's anything that we wanted to pull out to discuss. Trustee Whitaker.
So I got B6 and I actually had put B7 down here as well. Do you want me to just start with the first one or?
Let's just wait and see if other trustees would like to pull some other pieces out. And if not, we can jump right into B6. I am seeing nothing from trustees. So Trustee Whitaker, the floor is yours for B6.
Okay, so just I wanted to point out this B6 in that letter. It says that it's from the BCSDA, and it says that the BCSDA will send out this other letter from the Climate Ed Reform. And it actually didn't come as a separate letter to trustees. It came in the BCSDA weekly. And I really think that the work that this group is doing, it is a student group, is very exciting. So I just wanted to highlight to everyone that you needed to find that letter somewhere else, and that if they were interested, the website is climateactionreformbc.ca. And this is the students that are really putting Minister Whiteside's feet to the fire. So anyway, I just wanted to encourage people to take the time and effort to look into the work that this group is doing.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that piece from trustees? And if not, we can go to B7. I'm seeing nothing, Trustee Whitaker, so the floor is yours again.
Okay, so again, on this one, there is an invite on there, and I wanted to just check and see if we had followed up from the Secretary Treasurer. We were trying to get a walking tour organized, and also that we have further received information about being part of their board. So at first, I'm looking for information on if a walking tour had been established.
I have been in contact with CRD 2 times and have proposed some dates and times for them. They'll let us know if they're available for any of them, and then I will put them out to trustees. They're mainly, there's one Saturday date proposed, and there are a few 9 a.m.s and 3 p.m.s, but we'll see what they come back with in terms of availability.
So maybe just a point of clarification on that. You said you reached out to the CRD or to the Boker Creek Initiative group?
Sorry, the Boker Creek Initiative, the person who wrote the letter, I believe Lindsay McCrank.
Okay, thank you. That was my confusion.
Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Was that it for both of those?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment on Trustee Whitaker's comments about reaching out to various groups. Has anybody reached out to the Songhees and Esquimalt nations whose territory that creek is on?
I will go to Secretary Treasurer Morris.
I believe that Communications Manager McPhail gave a comprehensive answer to how the 4 houses or the 2 nations have been communicated with. Lisa, did you want to remind us?
So information was sent to both the Songhees and Esquimalt educational directors, as we've been directed to follow that process. We've also brought this information to our Indigenous Education Director, Shelley Nemi. She has weekly standing meetings with the 4 houses, and she can bring these agenda items forward to speak to these specific items. And this one will be coming forward as an agenda item at a future date at one of her meetings with the 4 houses.
Thank you so very much. What I was specifically referring to is an invitation to go on the walk with the rest of us. So I'll just leave that there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Trustee McNally and Secretary Treasurer Morris and Communications Manager McPhail for that information. So seeing as we've not pulled anything else out from correspondence, we will now move to Trustee Reports. C1 Chair's Report. I will throw the mic over to the previous Chair Whitaker to give the report and the annual work plan.
Oops, sorry about that. 1 second till I find the right document. Sorry. Okay, I will leave you the board report, but you will see in mine, sorry, as I scroll through the minutes. Sorry, give me one more sec. Oh my goodness. See what happens when you're not chairing anymore? You lose track. Okay, what page is my report on, you guys?
48.
And
Oh, I'm
40
almost there. Sorry, I'm almost there. 48 should be next. Okay, thank you very much. So I wanted to, just let everybody know that the board was invited to participate alongside our leadership students in a very dynamic presentation by Devika Pandey of the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion, and I'm sorry if I've said her name wrong. This session was focused on what is inclusion, why is it important, and what is the business, people, and social imperative of inclusion. And this session, we had a chance to hear very powerful information and very strong teachings in a very safe and good way, and we look forward to future sessions. Also, there was a public information session on November 3rd at the Lansdowne South in regards to the Victoria Hospital public information session. We've heard some comments about that this evening. And additionally, on November 9th, we also did a public consultation or public information center on the Cedar Hill project. I also really wanted to express and thank Jen Farr, the VP at Rogers, and Colette, who is a kindergarten teacher there, Colette Cristante, sorry, of Rogers Elementary, and Staff Sergeant Daryl Underwood for inviting me to participate and witness the first of a series of 4 events, one for each season, created to encourage the community to learn more about Indigenous culture together. I would also like to thank, with very big gratitude, John Harris, the District Elders and Indigenous Knowledge Facilitator, for leading and sharing his teachings with us all. It really was an honor and a pleasure to share with the students and elders and the community as they learned about each other and worked together to cut out hides for the drums that they will be making and that they will be using to learn the songs that have been gifted to the district. We also shared a meal of bannock and salmon prepared by the Songhees Wellness Center chefs. And it really was quite an amazing morning and afternoon following our rains. So I just really want to acknowledge and thank this group for inviting me to witness this event. Additionally, the Budget Committee had a meeting on November 16th. Which you will hear more about as we go forward, along with budget talking tables on November 18th. And you'll see that in future coming up in tonight's agenda. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Did you want to go over the annual work plan since it's under that report? I'm happy to do it.
Just 1 second. So as far as the annual work plan goes, what I really wanted to comment on that is that we have, you see the BCSDA Academy is there. So we have 3 trustees attending, and my apologies, I have had to cancel just due to the Malahat being closed and our gas shortages. I have been unable to attend to business in Nanaimo and will be going there instead. I also wanted to note that while December looks very busy, we are going to be short. It is a short month with winter vacation from December 19th to January 3rd. So we will be very busy over the next few weeks, but we are all looking forward to the opportunity for us to take a little break and to recharge. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. I will now go to Trustee Reports. 2 minutes for verbal presentations. We have first Trustee Duncan. Trustee Duncan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. This evening, I wanted to speak to my concern regarding Bill 22, which is currently before the BC Legislature, that promotes amendments to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and was introduced by the Minister of Citizen Services on the 18th of October of this year. Our entire learning community will be impacted by the proposed changes to the requirement under FIPA, or sometimes referred to as FOIPA, referred to as the data residency requirement. That requires that public bodies ensure that personal information in their custody or under its control is stored only in Canada and accessed only in Canada, unless the data subject consents to that information being stored or accessed from another jurisdiction. This evening, I want to highlight the privacy rights of students in particular, because they are particularly vulnerable, as their ability and that of their guardians to ensure their privacy rights where their personal data is accessed and stored outside of Canada, and where there may be little or no privacy protections afforded to Canadians, is of great concern to me. As the Information and Privacy Commissioner of British Columbia put it, what is exceedingly troubling is that the government now proposes to allow public bodies to send British Columbians personal information outside of Canada without explaining how they will properly protect it. Without concrete alternative protections for people's data, the government is effectively asking the Legislative Assembly for a blank check to eliminate the current restrictions on public bodies accessing and storing people's personal information outside of Canada. So I hope our learning community will join me in voicing your concerns about Bill 22 and the erosion of the privacy protections afforded by the current data residency requirements in the absence of any concrete alternative protections. Please consider writing to your Premier, your MLA, the Minister of Education, and Minister of Citizen Services, and please encourage MLAs to table any further consideration of the amendments envisioned by Bill 22 until the Special All-Party Legislative Committee completes its review of FIPA in accordance with Section 80 of that Act. It should be noted finally that the Special
Sorry, Nicole, we're over by about 15 seconds. So if you can wrap it. Yeah. Go ahead.
It should be noted that the Special All-Party Legislative Committee includes substantial public consultation in its review, and this has not yet been completed. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Trustee Duncan. Absolutely a very important piece that you brought to our attention, and thank you. I do appreciate that. Trustee Painter, you are next.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank Trustee Duncan for raising that issue. I think it's one that we can certainly start to address at the district level, but that's another matter. My reason for wanting to speak tonight is to express my thanks to my colleagues who were very supportive of me this fall during the hospitalization and subsequent death of my mother. I was very appreciative. Well, as I say, the silver lining for me in COVID was that I was able to work from the kitchen table in Calgary and still complete my my daytime responsibilities, although my district of responsibilities did suffer somewhat during that period, as my attention was focused on spending as much of Mom's remaining time with her as possible. So just thanks that I did receive support from so many of you, and that it made a real difference in getting through that process. My apologies for stepping away from personal or from the district for October in particular, but happy to be back on the coast and at work again. Thank you.
Trustee Painter, on behalf of the board, we really heartfelt apologies for your loss. It's hard, challenging. I understand exactly what you're going through at a very personal level. So thank you for that. And as always, if you need anything, we are here, and we are here to support each other. So, and no apologies needed, although they are accepted. Thank you. All right. We will now move on to D, board committee reports. D1, Education Policy and Directions Committee draft minutes from the November 1st, 2021 meeting, information only. There are no motions coming out of that meeting. So we'll go to D2, Operations Policy and Planning Committee. Draft minutes from the November 8th, 2021 meeting are for information, and there is a recommended motion from November 8th, 2021. And I will go to the chair of the Operations and Planning, Policy and Planning Committee, Leonard, to read the motion into the record for the board.
Thank you. We just have one motion this evening from the Ops Committee. It's that the Board of Education of SD61 direct the chair to create a rotating schedule of trustees to be invited to participate in the chair superintendent meetings for the duration of the board's terms.
Do I have a mover for the motion?
It's already been moved and seconded.
Oh, it's already been moved. Yes, thank you. It's moved and seconded. Right, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, Chair Leonard, I can leave it to you if you'd like to say anything about this motion before we go to a vote, or we can go to the vote. It's up to you.
It was brought forward by trustees Hensa and Waters. So if anyone was wanting to motivate, I would leave it to one of them if they want to say anything. Other than that, if there's no discussion, we can just move forward.
Thank you. I'm seeing no desire for discussion, so we can move right to the vote. Oh, hold on. Someone is saying, oh, okay, right. Thank you. So I will go to the motion from November 8th. All of those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? And the motion is carried unanimously. I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I've got a message from Winona that she had her hand up earlier and I missed it around correspondence. Can I get unanimous consent to just suspend the rules for a quick moment and jump up to correspondence so we can get Winona's discussion on that? So unanimous consent is given. Thank you. So Winona, we're going to go to your letter here back up in correspondence. My sincere apologies for missing this, but the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Painter. It's not actually about the letter that's included in the correspondence. It's about the letter that isn't included in the correspondence. On November 18th, we sent a letter to the trustees regarding Bill 22. And it may have been too late to make it in the correspondence, but I'd like to request that it be included in the next pack-up.
It will be included in the next pack-up.
And I have a second thing, if you don't mind, Chair Painter.
Please.
We went really quick into that motion, and that's okay because I wasn't going to speak on that one anyway, but I only am allowed to speak before the motion hits the floor. So if you could just give me 2 seconds at that time. It's always funny in this place, but thank you so much.
It is challenging, and being that this is my first kick at this board chair I do appreciate your flexibility, and I absolutely will make note of that, not just for you, but for rights holders and stakeholders. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so next we have Audit Committee report, November 8th, 2021. Before we read the motion on the floor, are there any rights holders or stakeholders who do wish to discuss this motion from the Audit Committee? And now I'm just going to scroll through and see if there are any hands up. And seeing no hands, so as chair of the Audit Committee, I will read the motion on the floor. That the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, accept the September 30th, 2021 quarterly financial report as presented to the Audit Committee. It is moved and seconded. So are there any discussions on the Audit Committee report from November 8th? Seeing none, then I will call the question of approval of this motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that looks like it's unanimous, and it is. Thank you very much, everybody. District leadership team reports, superintendent's report. Superintendent Deb Whitten, I will go to you for your report.
Thank you very much, Chair Painter. I will bring to your attention pages 64 and 65 of the packet. I'm just going through, as per goals for the strategic plan, some of the initiatives that I was involved in for the month. And then on the back page, which I think is important as well, is to show gratitude and appreciation and thanks for the work that is occurring in the district. While it's not possible to list everything, I do think it's important to highlight some of these things. So we'd like to thank the staff at George J for their support of students as written by MLA Grace Lohr. Also, the schools that were involved in No Stone Left Behind or No Stone Left Alone ceremonies for Remembrance Day. Lambert Park had youth category winners in the Saanich Environmental Awards. And also want to thank facilities staff for all of their work with recent wind and rain. They were very, very busy supporting schools. Want to wish Marnie Jensen well as she has moved on from our district to BCPC as a director of labor relations. And lastly, with gratitude and thanks to Jillian and Tammy for all of their work in retention and recruitment of educational assistants, and more work to do, but I did want to show appreciation for the work that they have done in that area. And that is my report or memo for this board meeting.
Thank you, Superintendent Whitten, and a very superb report. Thank you for that. We have a motion here. I need a mover and a seconder to receive the intern superintendent's report, moved by Trustee Whitaker, seconded by Trustee Waters. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will then call the question. All those in favor of receiving the intern superintendent's report? And that is unanimous. Very good. Thank you, trustees. Now, any trustee questions on the superintendent's report? Seeing and hearing none, I will now go to E2, Secretary Treasurer's report, monthly report from the Secretary Treasurer. Secretary Treasurer Morris, the ball is in your court.
Thank you. My report is on page 67 of the packet, and it starts with budget 22-23. We've had a couple of events. As former Chair Whitaker mentioned, the Budget Advisory Committee has had its first meeting on November 15th, reviewing values and guiding principles, terms of reference, and future topics the committee would like to put on the agenda. We had 27 members attend, which was a great turnout for our first meeting, and all agendas, minutes, and supporting documentation and presentations can be found on the website. Our next meeting is December 7th. We also had talking tables last week, and at the time of writing this report, we had 50 participants, but I believe we had over 60 by the time we were all said and done. And so I want to thank everybody for their time that evening. It's another evening away from family and friends, and really appreciate the conversations that were had around the table. I do want to bring up a student symposium, which is slated for the next week by Zoom. It's been very difficult to plan such a large meeting for student engagement and to keep them engaged in the discussion and the activities. So I'm proposing, or I'm asking the board to consider moving student symposium to January, where we may be better suited to meet in person and to make it a more fulsome discussion with students with more interaction and face-to-face communication and relationship building. This is well within our timeline of April 2022.
Do you need a motion to amend that?
Sure,
or?
that would be great. Yeah.
I'll put the motion on the floor to amend our budget consultation plan to move that student symposium to January, because I do agree.
Perfect. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Duncan, thank you very much. Any discussion? Trustee Leonard.
Just keeping in mind end of first term for most of those high school kids. It's a busy time for them. So I would suggest earlier in the month as opposed to later, if at all possible.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Trustee Leonard. And I think Trustee Morris will have noted that. That's excellent. Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. And now we'll go to the receipt of the Secretary Treasurer's report. Can I have a motion to receive? Moved by Trustee Ferris, seconded by Trustee Hensa. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous as well. Thank you very much. We'll go to E2B, Capital Plan Bylaw number 2021/22-CP SD61-03. Before we go to the motion, I want to see if our rights holders or stakeholders have any comments they'd like to make on this. Trustee Waldron, GVTA Waldron, there you got a promotion tonight, Winona.
I don't know if that'd be a promotion.
Perhaps not.
You got a thankless task. I guess I just want to check my understanding, because it's hard when I don't get to see the motivation beforehand. But what we see on page 67 to 68 that has the list of all of the school upgrades, including Cedar Hill, Shoreline, the Vic High, Mount Doug, Spectrum, all of that stuff. That's what this motion is about? Is all of those things? Is that?
I will go to Secretary Treasurer Morris.
So you'll note that the bylaw number on this is -03. And so we had, this is the third time that the board has dealt with its capital plan for 21-22. The first time was back in June. We had first reading of our capital plan bylaw for our funding letter, in which all of these items were listed, except the $50,000 for the electric bus charging stations and the $120,000 for the additional $30,000 per bus supplementary funding for electric buses. Our O2 bylaw was also read at another meeting in June, and that was regarding a shortfall in funding for the 4 electric buses, where the board passed a bylaw to have a small amount of borrowing. We've subsequently received another funding letter from the ministry dated October 22nd on page 70 of this month's packet. And so because we are receiving 2 more pots of money for the electrification of busing in School District 61, one being the $50,000 for the charging stations and the other being that $30,000 per bus, totaling $120,000 for School District 61 under this funding letter, we require a third bylaw to the board accepting that funding. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight, the $50,000 and the $120,000 incremental from last June.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Winona, how was that good? Or if you have a follow-up,
I just want to thank the Secretary Treasurer for such a thorough explanation. I appreciate those were bolded in the packet, so that completely makes sense. And the GVTA is certainly in support of both of these projects, as we see it's a way of addressing the climate emergency that we find ourselves in. Thank you very much, Chair.
And thank you to President Waldron. I want to see if there's any other rights holders or stakeholders present who want to speak on this. Just checking screens, seeing and hearing none. Trustees, so what we're looking at here is first and second reading of this capital bylaw. Do I have unanimous consent to dispense with the full reading of this bylaw and we can accept it as read so that I do not have to read all the way through it? Unless somebody really wants to punish me, which you certainly could if you wanted to.
I have a question about it.
Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Okay, so in section A.
Sorry, Trustee McNally, pardon me. I just want to make sure I do have unanimous consent. I think I do, but I'm just checking. Yes, okay, good. Thank you. Trustee McNally, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Section A authorizes secretary, treasurer, etc. Or the capital plan with modifications. Is that just boilerplate? Is that standard? Standard wording? It seems, to leave quite a lot of leeway that isn't under the board's oversight, if you will. Just that one phrase jumped out at me. I may have missed the previous meetings, and so sorry to ask it at this late date, but there it is.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Secretary Treasurer Morris.
I would say that this is boilerplate. It is a bylaw produced by the ministry. And so I think most school districts in the province are using it. And the funding agreements are also created by the ministry. There's no negotiation on those. It generally is a reflection of what you see in the funding announcement letter, and is typically signed after the bylaws are read.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. Trustee McNally, was that sufficient information? Okay, great. Good thing I can lip read. Okay, so we can, sorry, I'll seek any other comments or questions on first and second reading of the bylaw. Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question. Again, this is on first and second reading of bylaw number 2021-22, CP SD6103. All those in favor of first and second reading, please signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much, trustees. Now, recommended motion for the Board of Education of School District number 61 to agree to give all three readings of School District number 61 Greater Victoria Capital Bylaw number 2021/22 CPS D61-03 at the November 22nd, 2021 board meeting. This must pass unanimously in order for us to give third reading this evening. Can I have a mover first of this motion? Moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of moving to third reading tonight, please signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. So we will move to third reading. And the motion is that read a third time this day, this 22nd day of November 2021. We'll have to clean that up for the minutes. And finally passed and adopted on the 22nd, well, of course, because we weren't sure we were doing it tonight, on 22nd day of November 2021. Can I have a mover for third reading, please? Moved by Trustee Waters, seconded by Trustee Ferris. Any discussion on third reading? Seeing and hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Secretary Treasurer, we will now go over to you. Cedar Hill Middle School net zero business case.
Thank you. Starting on page 75 of tonight's pack-up is a board report relative to a September 27th motion that came before the board and directed staff to determine the cost of incorporating net zero into the design of new Cedar Hill Middle School, and further that staff report the cost, including business case, back to the board by November for board approval to consider the funds for net zero design. I would like to start off by thanking the Associate Director of Facilities, Marnie Vistis and Harwood, for the technical elements of this report, as well as I believe we have a guest from a consultant for our architect, and forgive me, I've forgotten that person's name, but I'll probably hand this over to Marnie and she can introduce him fairly quickly. And hopefully Marnie can run us through this report and that you've had a chance to review it. We've pretty much provided three options with a lot of technical information here, which I really enjoyed. I hope you did too. A table one with costs and of each option, as well as some of the benefits of that. And our conclusion is that we have some serious constraints with BC Hydro in terms of being net zero, and a series of recommendations. And I would say One of the most important ones that the board should consider tonight would be the advocacy to BC Hydro and any ministry associated with climate change in BC to lift these constraints so that schools like Cedar Hill and schools in the province can move forward with effective climate change. But I will turn it over to Marnie to run us through the report.
Hi, everyone. So Kurt Hepting is kindly stuck around for this, and he's going to help me out with any technical questions I can't answer. So in support of developing the project definition report for the ministry, an energy workshop was first conducted. The primary goal was to design a school that could generate as much renewable energy as it consumed over a typical year, and that's a net zero energy building. The team started with a base design that exceeded the BC building code. From there, they analyzed all different components of the build, including windows, heating, insulation. There's an extensive list, and then they explored the 3 different bundles in the pack up. The recommendation of the report is to proceed with the bundle 2, which is a net zero energy ready building. This bundle actually took the base design and made the building more energy efficient by decreasing the 65-ton air source heat pump into a 30-ton air source heat pump and a ground source heat pump. It added displacement ventilation in the classrooms, which actually also helps with air quality. It lowered the heat pump temperatures, and it added variable speed drives in the shops, which will actually help with the sound in the shops as well. So the net zero energy ready bundle can also accommodate a 100 kilowatt solar array. So the complete bundle with the solar array is a little over $538,000. In order for the school district to achieve a net zero energy building, we would have to look at adding another 272 kilowatt solar array that would have to be installed to the building. However, like Kim said, BC Hydro has a cap of 100 kilowatts on their current net metering program. So we could look at preparing the new building structurally to accommodate that 272 kilowatt array in the future if BC Hydro's constraint is resolved. And that extra structural component is about $272,000. So we also looked at, with the extra funds that were in excess of the net zero ready bundle, what we could do to decrease the greenhouse gas emissions within the school district and around the school district. So some thoughts are we could look at replacing Lambert Park's aging boiler. It's limping along, so it has maybe 5 years if we're lucky left. And that would actually decrease the greenhouse gas emissions by 90 tons per year, which is a significant amount. We could also look at placing solar on some of the smaller schools within the district. And that would just make sure that we stay under the small general service rate category. So we're not going to get any demand charges. Small schools like Eagleview or Northridge, all of our little elementary schools. We could also look at doing roof replacements, looking at recommissioning buildings. There's a provincial incentive right now. So essentially, like Kim said, our recommendation is to proceed with a net zero energy ready building with the 100 kilowatt solar array until BC Hydro figures out the net metering constraints. It's a lot to take in.
Thank you, Marnie. I'm getting some feedback. Just hang tight here. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Marnie. Appreciate that. I will now turn it over to trustees for any questions or comments. I've got Trustee Duncan, Trustee Whitaker, and then Trustee McNally. Trustee Duncan, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for the comprehensive report and all the effort that went into providing it for us tonight. It is appreciated. I wanted to just first clarify Bundle 2, the net zero ready option. I just wanted to clarify, my understanding was that the ministry funds net zero ready projects. And so I'm wondering if that is the case here with Cedar Hill. Yeah, so if we can just get that clarification first, thanks.
Yes, yeah, they'll fund the net zero energy ready school.
And so just in follow-up, Chair, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Thank you. And so Bundle 2, that option would be fully funded by the ministry. It wouldn't require the board to bridge the gap.
I'm going to leave that one to Kim, but I do believe the board has to bridge that gap.
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Sure, I believe bundle one would be the bundle that the ministry would cover in terms of its funding of the building. Because we're adding solar array to bundle two would be the cost.
Trustee Duncan, a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. So just further, excuse me, exploring this issue of what the ministry will or will not fund. My understanding was that, again, that the ministry will fund a net zero ready building. And so if bundle two is essentially bringing us to the point where we have a net zero ready building, would you mind just explaining, because I don't understand why the ministry wouldn't fund that?
Sure. So you'll notice that bundle two is called net zero energy ready building with 100 kilowatt solar array. So it's net zero energy ready plus something else solar array. And so the solar array is the project cost you see there in terms of putting that infrastructure in. So the ministry would build us to a state of net zero energy ready. But because we wanted to do as much as we could to be climate or carbon neutral, this bundle two net zero energy ready with solar array includes photovoltaic, which would not be covered by the ministry.
And so it's the introduction then of the solar panels themselves, which move it out of the category, as far as the ministry is concerned, of a net zero ready building. And it's an enhancement, yes, which we need to pay for. Okay.
Because it was the max that we could do in terms of the constraints we had with BC Hydro.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Trustee McNally, sorry, Trustee Whitaker, you were next, and then Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you very, very much for this report. And I'm just going to apologize that I don't understand all of it. I guess for me, the big question that I don't understand is the issue that it's BC Hydro that holds us back from going to a net zero, especially when I hear that there's so much coming from government to have all our municipalities as well as ourselves moving in this direction. So I guess I'm just looking to understand how does that work? What is the fall down with BC Hydro?
I honestly don't know if I could answer that. There's a lot of projects within our province that are having the same constraints. Kurt, are you able to put any other thought on this one?
Sure. Hello, everyone. BC Hydro has, through the BCUC, has a tariff for net metering. And that net metering tariff allows them to essentially cap or limit projects to 100 kW system. Above that, they don't allow that. I've heard rumors of projects getting special allowances, but as far as law schools and other projects I've worked with, 100 kW has been the cap. Just one side note real quick, bundle three, you would actually need 272 kW total, not extra, but still that's well above the 100 kW, either way you slice it, 272 or 372, it's still far above what BC Hydro allows for.
Wow.
And that's why we have the recommendation for advocacy. We think this is a huge issue in terms of all boards across the province wanting to move forward with climate action, and the inability to do so, is an issue.
Literally, my jaw is on the ground. Thank you for that. I see this as well as definitely somewhere that we need to partner with other groups and other organizations and clearly make it known to government that we are doing everything that we can do, but it's really challenging when BC Hydro is the holdup. So thank you for that.
If I might just quickly add, you're not the only one. I'm working on another school right now, talking to BC Hydro right now with this exact same issue.
Kurt, please keep us informed as to how we can advocate more, because obviously this is a provincial problem that hits more than just our sector. I'm really just gobsmacked that for all the efforts that we're putting out, that where we run into a challenge is with our electric company. So thank you for your work.
Sure.
Thank you, Kurt, Marnie, and Trustee Whitaker. I've got Trustee McNally and then Trustee Painter, and then I'll go back to Trustee Duncan. So Trustee McNally, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. I have just a simple question that comes from the body of the document that we have here, but Chair, if you rule this as not the place to bring this up, that's okay. I'll find out another way. But can somebody here tell me what BC Hydro's reasoning is for this cow?
No. I'll leave it to Kurt again, but I don't think anybody knows BC Hydro's reasoning.
Oh my gosh.
I can give a few insights, but they'd be more speculation. I mean, BC Hydro has an infrastructure of transmission and distribution lines, of which you get to essentially use them as a big battery storage. So I can kind of appreciate that side, right? Because in the middle of summer is when you're going to produce all this power that you don't need. They're going to act as the big battery, essentially our dams, to store it. So I guess they kind of see that as maybe a bit of, hedge against it or so. But yeah, exactly why I would have to get into the depths of their BCUC submission and those, and I haven't looked those up or looked at them, but exactly why it's hard to say.
Thank you. I wouldn't understand that anyway, probably if I saw the document. My fairly simple question is from our document here. What is reduced thermal bridging?
Marnie, you want me? I can.
Yeah, you can answer that.
Sure. Okay. So reduced thermal bridging is in your walls, especially in particular. It could be anywhere in your envelope, but in your walls, when you put together buildings, especially of this type, usually it's with steel studs in there. Sometimes now we're seeing more and more wood, but usually steel studs. Metal is a very good conductor of not only electricity, of heat. And so consequently, it bridges across the insulation, thereby creating, essentially, think of it as a leak, think of it as a thermal leak that goes from inside to outside through the metal. Even though you have all this great thick insulation, when you have all this metal in between, that creates thermal bridging that compromises the effectiveness of the insulation. So looking at trying to reduce that is a way of getting more out of the same insulation, if you will.
Well, thank you so much. I had zero idea.
Thank you, Trustee McNally and Kurt. We're learning a lot tonight. This is great. Trustee Painter, over to you, and then Trustee Duncan is on deck.
If I may, Chair, I noticed that our VC PAC rep had their hand up. I was just wondering, is that opportunity lost at this point, or are they able to speak? Since it's not a motion per se.
It's not a motion per se. It's not a committee meeting though. So I suppose I can exercise a bit of latitude and allow VC PAC Chair Hammer to ask a question or make a comment, but we'll ask for it to be relatively brief because this is a meeting for board business primarily. So if VC PAC Chair Hammer wants to speak, please feel free to go ahead.
Thanks for that. My question was actually answered by some of the questions that were being asked. So, but thanks for the discretion.
Not a problem. Trustee Painter, was that your point, or did you have a broader question?
I had two questions. I think are probably pretty quick. When I look at the suggested heating plant upgrades table, I expect it's probably in here under carbon offsets. But is the carbon tax projected pricing built into the cost recovery as far as this is concerned?
Yes.
Is it
Yes.
that carbon offsets one?
Yes. When you look at it, the second to last column there, if you look at Lambrick Park, it would cost us essentially, you're paying about $10,000 today to decrease 1 ton of CO2 emissions. And he did take into account the cost of everything when he did the table.
Okay, and the range, I take it then would be, cost per ton. So, okay, all right, I can understand that. The other question I had, and I do recognize that this isn't an energy question per se, but have considerations gone into factors like, for example, storing and making use of rainwater for, flushing toilets and things like that, things that might not be directly related to the energy used in the building, but nonetheless relate to the broader footprint of the infrastructure that we depend upon? Thank you.
I might get Kurt to elaborate on this one, but I do know that we take into account all the energy efficient appliances we can put in, the toilets that we can put in. As far as rainwater leaders, I honestly don't know if that was taken into consideration, but we can ask the architect about it at this point. Kurt,
Yeah,
do you
my
have any-
focus is, oh, sorry. Yeah, my focus is on energy, as you noted, Marnie, but I do know that all the projects go through a lead assessment, and part of that is looking at water efficiency. It's not my domain, but there's considerations of at least reducing water use, for example, for watering, exterior irrigation, that type of thing. But I couldn't say if rainwater barrels, for example, were exactly looked at, but it is a consideration with the environmental standard that is reviewed for all new schools.
Thank you, Kurt and Marnie. Trustee Duncan, and then Trustee Whitaker, you're on deck.
Great, thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of quick questions. One around gas-fired boilers. I'm wondering what alternatives were reviewed. I'm keen to see us move away from gas in general and gas-fired boilers. So I wonder if you could expand on that. And then I've got one more question around timelines for decision.
Yeah, I know in the last community consultation, there was somebody that asked about doing a fully electric school. I would very much discourage that because you're going to get into a different rate class with BC Hydro. So we're going to be paying substantially more demand charges with that. So your utility bills monthly is going to be exorbitantly high. In this case, you're decreasing the boiler as you're going along. So we're decreasing the greenhouse gas emissions. There is no thought, and Kurt can correct me if I'm wrong, of actually excluding it because it was too cost prohibitive to actually exclude the gas boiler completely because natural gas is cheaper than electricity.
Yes, and in this particular case, the marching orders we were given from the province was to look at net zero energy. So consequently, when you go over to net zero carbon, then the whole game switches, and looking at possibly getting rid of the gas boiler I've seen come up more. That said, the gas boiler, for example, in this case is only used about 3% of the year for those very worst, coldest times, which if you had to put an electric boiler would, as Marnie said, bump you into a higher rate class, and your demand, like the electrical service, would have to be almost doubled just for that one little 3%. So it does make a huge difference if you could just use gas for just a very little tiny bit where it gets super cold and you have to bring the building up.
Thank you for clarifying that we are also looking back at BC Hydro for looking at their demand charges. That's good to know. I guess the only other thing, it was more of a practical matter, was around, you know, when do we need a decision? There's a lot of information in here for us to consider, and I'm wondering when we need to make a decision by. If we get clarification on that, that would be fantastic.
I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
I think you definitely would have another month. Would you say, Marnie? The December 13th board meeting?
I would say at least that, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. Well, to follow on that, I would like to refer this report. I thank you very, very much for this, but there's so much to go through, a bit more research and learning to be done. So my hope is that we can refer this to the December ops meeting so that we've got some time to digest and that we can go through it again there and then follow it up the process so it's not lost as well.
I'll second that.
Thank you. My motion to refer, seconded by Trustee Waters.
Very good. So we have a motion to refer the Cedar Hill Middle School Net Zero Business Case report and all various and sundry questions and comments around that to December ops, moved by Trustee Whitaker, seconded by Trustee Waters. Is there any discussion? Trustee Whitaker, you're free to say some additional pieces if you'd like.
I just note that the Secretary Treasurer has her hand up. I'd like to hear from her before we vote.
Absolutely. Secretary Treasurer Morris, go ahead.
Sorry to interject during debate. I just wanted to mention if this motion passes and you do have any specific questions, it's really helpful to have them before agenda publishing day or a week before, just so we can seek the technical information so we can give you as much information as we can. So any questions are appreciated before the meeting by email so that we can prepare. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Secretary
you.
Treasurer. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. So trustees, if we do decide to move this forward to December ops, let's be sure to be lickety split with any questions we have so staff can have those and review them. Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor to refer this to December ops? Seeing and hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now go to D, Budget Advisory Committee draft November 15th, 2021 minutes. Secretary Treasurer Morris.
These are for information. The Budget Advisory Committee does report to the board, and so these are here as draft for your information. And they are on the website right now and will be reviewed on December 7th at committee meeting number 2.
Thank you. Any discussion on the Budget Advisory Committee draft minutes? Seeing and hearing, oh, Trustee Rob Painter, go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize. Maybe I missed it completely in an earlier discussion. I thought that the committee reported to the board, but through ops, where we would be able to have fulsome discussions about the content that was coming forward.
I'll go to Secretary Treasurer Morris. Maybe there's some clarity that can be added.
I believe in the terms of reference right now, the committee reports to the board.
Thanks. I'll take a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. Oh, I guess there is no question. Right. Okay, never mind. Clearly, I'm getting in the swing of things. We will go to E, Budget Advisory Committee terms of reference. Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Thank you. So after our first budget committee meeting, we had discussed one of the topics on the agenda was the terms of reference. And during the reporting out at that meeting, several suggestions were made to amend the terms of reference. We asked committee members on a Google Doc to please enter their suggested changes to the terms of reference. I put in 3 examples of what I heard, and there were no further entries by any committee members. And so I wonder if I should just incorporate the 3 examples that I heard into the next terms of reference and take it to the December 7th meeting, which means it would come back to the board on December 13th. And those were under composition and operations, the first paragraph after the list of members that starts all committee members shall commit to. We wanted to delete proper use of authority. We wanted to insert some culturally safety language into the document. And we wanted to reference or state more of the values or guiding principles that should be in the document, especially students at the center, perhaps in the duties and responsibilities sections or the purpose section. So if that's the way the board would like to go forward, I can redraft for the Budget Advisory Committee meeting number 2, and that committee can review and send back to the board.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. I see Trustee McNally has a question. Go ahead, Trustee McNally.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate hearing the changes that could be incorporated. I suppose at this point, I would call myself infamous for not being able to find Google Docs. So I did not, I don't think I got an email directing me to where to go to find it because I need that sort of thing. So I didn't put anything in because I didn't know where to find the documents. So my request would be that through the chair to the Secretary Treasurer, send out how to comment in the Google Doc and where it is and leave it up maybe for another week. I would ask that.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. I'm assuming Secretary Treasurer Morris has heard. You can respond if you like, Secretary Treasurer Morris, so you can take that for information.
Sure, I am just looking for the email that I sent with the 2 links were sent to all committee members on November 17th at 1:22, but I can certainly forward that to Trustee McNally.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the terms of reference? Seeing and hearing. Oh, yes, sorry. Winona, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute, Winona. Sorry.
I lowered my hand, didn't unmute myself. I also didn't receive the email and was waiting for the invitation to comment. So possibly went to my school district account. I don't check that one, but I had also not seen the draft terms of reference beyond what we discussed at the meeting and had some concerns I wanted to bring forward to the board, and then didn't see it on the agenda here. So I thought that maybe it just hadn't happened yet. So maybe we can just check that it actually went out to the intended folks.
Thanks, Winona. And Secretary Treasurer, I'm sure can review and ensure that we are hitting the intended recipients of that going forward. But thank you for raising that, Winona. I appreciate it. Any further discussion? Any rights holders or stakeholders want to discuss before we move forward? Because I do not want to miss anybody. I'll check for hands up, seeing and hearing none. We will go to F, bylaw 9130, standing committees. We have a recommended motion that revised bylaw 9130 standing committees be read a third time passed and adopted the 22nd day of November 2021. Before we move into discussion and debate, are there any rights holders or stakeholders who would like to comment on this? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for a mover of this motion. Moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Ferris. Any discussion? Trustee Painter.
Yes, I move that this motion be tabled until such time as the consultant's report that it makes reference to is released publicly, so that we can have a full and complete discussion of the issue.
Okay, so we have a motion to table until we receive the consultant's report. Is that right, Trustee Painter? Just want to make sure I've heard that properly.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, is there any seconder on the motion to table? Okay, Trustee McNally. Now let me just double check here that we are following Roberts. So this is, want to make sure I'm following procedure here, although it can be tricky sometimes. I do believe placing on the table is debatable. Yes, it is. So placing on the table is debatable. So if there are any trustees who would like to debate, please feel free to go ahead and debate.
It's not debatable.
I just checked in here. Perhaps I saw it wrong. I'm welcome. I'm happy to be corrected. I know sometimes we like to lax. No,
It
hold on.
needs to be
Sorry.
seconded. It's not debatable and it's not amendable and it needs a majority. But it doesn't matter. You can debate it if you want. I don't care.
Well, and I know sometimes we do like to relax, as we have commented on the rigidity of Roberts. We do like to relax it a little bit because it can be challenging, especially in some of these circumstances. So with the indulgence of the board, we can debate this motion. I will let it be debated. So if there's any debate, please raise your hand. And Trustee Waters, go ahead.
Just wanted to inquire, in case I missed it, if there was a motion that had ever come before the board to make the consultant's recommendations public. Like, has it been moved into the public? Has any efforts been made around that, Chair?
Not to my knowledge.
So if the motion is to postpone until that time, I'm just wondering what the plan is, because we've had those recommendations for nearly 6 months, and I'm not aware, as you say, of any motions to put it into the public.
Thank you. And just reaffirming, what I heard from Trustee Painter was that this was not such a motion to table, but a motion to postpone to a certain time, which again, just confirming, is debatable as per Robert's rules, 12th edition. So any further debate or discussion? Trustee McNally.
Thank you. So the postponement to the certain time could certainly be considered the date or the meeting when this consultant's report is released, and I can bring a motion, or anyone can, to suggest or ask or demand that it be released and see where that goes. So it seems like sort of backwards logic, I guess, to postpone to a time that hasn't happened yet, but you can be assured that I'll bring a motion that it be released, and then that would be the time that Trustee Painter is referring to, I think.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. That is indeed accurate, and I do appreciate you providing that context and that clarification for us should this go to that place. Any further discussion on the motion to postpone? Okay, Trustee Leonard, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I am not in favor of the motion to postpone. This came before the meeting a month ago. There was no discussion then of the consultant's report in that context. So this is just the third reading, and I'm in favor of moving it forward before the new board with the new season, with the new way of doing things happens starting in December. So I think it's a good time to move forward with a new way of doing things. And so I'm in favor of the motion on the floor, but not referring it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Trustee Waters, you have spoken.
It was just a question.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Trustee McNally, you have also spoken.
I know, okay. But it's just a question. So I just like to ask,
we'll let some questions go. So, yeah, go ahead, Trustee McNally, but then I will let Trustee Waters ask her question. Go ahead.
Sure. Who's the new board in December?
Oh, you've gone on mute, Trustee McNally.
Who's the new board in December, and what are the new ways of doing things? That through the chair, I guess, Chair Trustee Leonard mentioned that, and I'm not at all clear.
Yeah, the reference is being made to this, these new revised bylaws only being in place until the new board is elected next year. At that point,
next December.
Yes, at that point it would revert back, and then there would be a discussion with the new board about why this was brought into place, the rationale for it, and then there would be a decision to continue with this practice or to revert back.
Thank you. I had lost it with which December was being referred to.
No problem. Trustee Waters.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment that I will be supporting this. This is a motion that was brought forward in September. So we've actually had 3 months to discuss this. The board also unanimously passed another recommendation that came from the same consultants early in our meeting today, which includes having rotating schedule for trustees at the chair super meetings. So I just, I think we've had ample time to discuss this, and I understand that there is some trepidation around this particular direction. And I think it's not a bell we can't unring. So I'm hopeful that everybody can come forward, and if this passes, come with an open heart, open mind, and if it doesn't work, we can always reverse course. But let's try something new and different. It's been a recommendation coming forward, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully finding new and better ways of doing things.
That wasn't a question.
Can I just clarify, are we talking about postponing this or the motion right now? I'm confused. You're on mute. You're muted.
My point is that we've had 3 months to discuss
Trustees,
this.
sorry, trustees, just one sec. I just want to confirm we're discussing postponement. And my understanding is that all trustees right now are speaking to the motion to postpone. So we will continue. Trustee Painter, I saw your hand up. Oh, you know what, Trustee Painter, since you have spoken, I'm going to go to Trustee Duncan because she hasn't.
Actually, Chair, I haven't spoken. I missed out on my opportunity to motivate, so I'll just wait until I have the opportunity to close. And
Thank you. We'll go. You can open and close at the same time, probably. Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that I can certainly understand the rationale behind Trustee Rob Painter's motion. I think where this particular motion differs from the motion that received unanimous support from the board is in the wording of the recommendation from the consultants and the gap between the wording, which was to move to committee of the whole for all committees until the end of the board's term, and what we've got before us in the bylaw, which is to have all trustees be voting members. And so as a result of that, I think some folks around the table are concerned that the purpose of the consultant's recommendation, presumably was to bring trustees together and to try to reach decisions by consensus and to operate in a way that is more open to free-flowing conversation and debate and dialogue around issues at the committees, has been turned into something that possibly wasn't intended. So I think because the wording in that original recommendation from the consultants is so different from what is envisioned in the bylaw amendment, there continues to be some concern.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Now, Trustee Rob Painter. My apologies. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and no problems. I think you're doing great today. Actually, Trustee Duncan hit a lot of the points that I would be raising. My concern is that, and I speak with some trepidation, because if the consultant's report is not public, I'm not sure how much I can discuss, but my primary concern is that the recommendation to go into committee of the whole, and even to focus on a consensus approach and to identify dissenting voices, I believe is a significantly different process and intended outcome than is moving to what is essentially 3 board meetings a month and having a majority voting system that's contrary to what I would recognize as a consensus matter. And I believe that until such time as we're able to freely and openly speak to the recommendations that are provided in the consultant's report, I don't think that I think we're limited. And I do apologize for not having raised this in the past. As I mentioned in my my report earlier, the October board meeting was 2 days after my mother's memorial service, and I simply wasn't in a positive frame of mind to be participating in board actions. I recognize that the board carries on regardless, but that's my rationale for why I raised it this month and not last month.
All right, thank you, Trustee Painter. Now that all trustees have spoken, except for Trustees Ferris and Hensa, I just want to make sure if you do have points you want to raise, you are free to do so. Oh, and Trustee Whitaker, I'm sorry, I thought you had spoken, but you can too if you'd like. Seeing none, okay. So I will call the question then. And the question is on postponement of the revised bylaw reading a third time until we receive the consultant's report. So if you vote in favor, you are voting to postpone third reading from tonight. All those in favor of postponing third reading? All those opposed to postponing third reading, please raise your hand. And that is defeated with trustees Duncan, McNally, Painter, Rob Painter, and Whitaker voting in favor. And that is defeated. So we'll go back to the main question. That revised bylaw 9130, standing committees be read a third time, passed and adopted on the 22nd day of November 2021. Any further discussion on the main motion? Trustee Rob Painter. Oh, we know what? We'll go to Trustee Whitaker because she didn't get to speak on the last motion. So Trustee Whitaker, then Trustee Painter. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to vote, as I have all along, against this motion. I think I've expressed some of them, but mostly I just want to express that I'm really concerned, and Trustee Duncan has mentioned that, how far away from the original recommendation that this motion has gone. The original intent from the report, which we are unable to share, was to reach consensus. I think that that's been made clear, that the intent of the consultants was to go to a committee of the whole so that the board could have the opportunity to come to consensus as a group. While this motion gives 9 trustees a vote, it completely moves away from the consensus model. And it really, to be quite honest with you, it feels like a lot more of the same of what we've been doing, which is we plow forward with the majority choosing this is what we're going to do, without taking the time to stop and to try to compromise and to reach consensus. And so I'm very challenged with that. I don't see this as being anything different in what we've been doing over the last 3 years. I'm also challenged that when this board was at its very worst, that these recommendations were pushed aside and the board was told that we wouldn't be doing these and we would look at it at another time. So I'm really quite shocked that 6 months later, this is what's coming forward after a great deal of conflict, after things have settled down and changes have happened. And, you know, it does not escape me that this also comes after a trustee was unhappy with their appointment. So based on the fact that I don't think that this is moving us to a more positive direction, which is to reach consensus, what it has done is created a majority and a minority again, and their inability to work together is continuing forward. I hope that is different as we move forward, but I am very challenged that this is going to be a lot more of the same, and everything that we have heard from the public, from the consultants, from our rights holders, from stakeholders, that this is not what they want to see us do. But regardless, we will go with the majority.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Rob Painter. Yes, I don't need to say that. I'm talking to you, so Trustee Painter.
We'll work it out, yeah. And actually, not a lot that I can say to add to what Trustee Whitaker has already pointed out. My concern is quite honestly that this is going to continue to divide the board, that rather than having an opportunity to work towards an agreement on policies prior to them coming to the board, and hopefully avoiding the contentiousness that has existed in past board meetings, that we're simply going to be going back to well, for lack of a better term, a steamroller effect, where people will call the question, and if you haven't had a chance to speak, you won't get to speak at all. I just don't think that this is going to be a productive way forward, and I don't think it's going to be to the benefit of the district or board practice generally. So I will be voting against this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Trustee Leonard.
I just wanted to say that there's been a multitude of board chairs or committee chairs over the last year, and I don't think that anyone has been denied the right to speak at any meeting. I believe that everyone has been given ample time. If the fact that we may disagree on the outcome or the vote is different than not being allowed or given the opportunity to speak. As chair of ops and observing other people as chair of different committees and board meetings, I take offense to that comment. I don't believe it's accurate. And I just don't want to give the opinion out there that we're all cutting everybody off. I believe that every chair that has been in the position of chair, whether at committee or board level, has given everyone ample opportunity to speak.
Point of
Thank you,
order.
Trustee
Chair.
Leonard. Yes, Trustee Painter, point of order.
Since the veracity of my comments have been called into question, I'll be happy to present Trustee Leonard with the specific timestamp from the budget process where it was actually Trustee Leonard who called the question, and despite having been told that I would get a chance to
Okay,
speak,
Trustee Painter, sorry, Trustee Painter, I'm not sure that's an actual point of order. So I'm going to go to the next speaker. Is there another speaker? Yes, Trustee Hensa, go ahead, please.
Thank you. As one of the two trustees that brought this forward, I'm really sorry to see that this is already being very contentious. This was a motion that I was hoping would work to bring us together and not further divide us. My intention in doing this was for us all to participate in all the meetings, for us all to receive presentations and be able to hear from community and be able to take part in a less formal process at Ed Policy and Ops when we get to have more Q&A and more time for questions with our rights holders, stakeholders, community presenters. That's my main purpose in this. I guess the future will tell how this goes, but it's certainly not my intention to be steamrolling anything through. And as far as what the consultants were intending, I did have several emails back and forth with both Mike and Teresa before bringing this forward, and I forwarded them to trustees, and both the consultants confirmed that this motion is along the same lines as what their intentions were with their recommendations, which is why I brought it forward. So my intention is not to go around and stick to the letter, but defy the intent. I'm trying to move with the intent. I know that voting privileges is a real sticking point, and I just hope that we can move forward with this, try to all be at the table together, working towards consensus, hearing from community together, and that we can have a positive experience with this over the next, I guess, 10 months of our term. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Hensa. Trustee Ferris.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of negativity about this. When I first heard about first listened to Trustee Hensa bring this forward, I was under the impression that having more people, more trustees at our standing committee meetings would actually be a healthy way of broadening the debate, and also a healthy way of having our public heard by all trustees. And so that's my hope, that that's the direction we're going, and I will support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Ferris. Trustee Duncan. No, I'm sorry, I've lost track. Have you spoken on this yet? I don't think you have.
No, on the previous.
No, not on the
motion.
main motion.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I won't belabor the point because at previous meetings, I've made it clear what my position is on this particular one, but I just want to clarify one point for the benefit of my colleagues, for what it's worth. And that is really just that, you know, all trustees already have the right to attend either standing committee. They can participate fully in either standing committee that is allowed currently by our bylaws. What this does is to give voting rights, not just to the members of the standing committees, but to all trustees, effectively turning it into a board meeting with voting rights of the entire board rather than the individual committee members. And so, you know, again, my concern was that this was not a very pragmatic procedural approach. If the goal, as I understood it, from the consultants was to create a more committee of the whole atmosphere whereby the board could work in a very positive way, collegially, to come to some consensus around decision making. Throwing voting rights in and effectively creating another 2 board meetings, I don't think will achieve that. And so it's not a matter of disagreeing with an intention to create a more collegial and cooperative environment. I absolutely support that. I just don't believe that the way that this has been articulated will achieve that goal. And so I won't support the motion on the main motion on the floor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Duncan. I think we've heard from everybody on this, so I'm going to call the question on the main motion, which one more time is the revised bylaw 9130, standing committees be read a third time, passed and adopted the 22nd day of November 2021. All of those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And all of those opposed. And the motion is carried with trustees Duncan, McNally, Painter, and Whitaker opposed. We'll now go to bylaw 9130.1, Education Policy Directions Committee, which reads, the revised bylaw 9130.1, Education Policy and Directions Committee be read a third time, passed and adopted the 22nd day of November 2021. Can I get a mover of this motion, please? Moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Hensa. Any discussion?
Before it hits the floor, Chair, and I know it just has, but.
Yes, my apologies, Winona. Please do go ahead.
That's okay. I know it's getting late and people are going fast. Just, I guess, given the debate of the current or the previous motion and what I expect will be similar arguments around this motion, I just wanted to express our concern from the GVTA that we're going to see similar 5-4 votes at ed policy as it looks like we're going to see at ops, and we just saw right now, and that is a concern. I don't think that's going to lead to better debate. I think that's going to lead to a view that's already held that there is a split in our board, and it's a 5-4 split that we see happen over and over again, and it creates anxiety out there about looking after the best interest of our students moving forward, and so I hope you will carefully consider what people are seeing as you debate and move these motions forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Winona. And yes, VC PAC, Crystal Hammer, go ahead, please.
Thanks. VC PAC does echo the GVTA's comments just now. I've watched a lot of these board meetings, and I see, I see a 5-4 split, and I see valid concerns both of stakeholders and the majority or individuals on your board not being grappled with, and instead just being pushed to a 5-4 split, and it creates a terrible environment. I personally have stepped away from the chair because of the way this board, from chair as VC PAC, because of the way that this board is operating. And committee, when you moved into committee of the whole discussions in the budget process, you did some of the best work as a board that I've seen in a really long time. And I don't see that tonight. I don't see that same board. I don't see the safety around participation, being, I just would, I worry about the direction that you are heading as a stakeholder. So I'll be watching your comments really carefully about, your intention, Trustee Hensa, here to see how that plays out. And there's lots of people watching. So thank you for your time.
Thank you to both GVTA and VC PAC. And if there are any rights holders or stakeholders who do want to comment, I'll just open the floor to you now so that you can do so that we don't miss your contributions, because they are very important to our discussion. So seeing and hearing none, I'll turn it back to the trustees. Any other speakers? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on bylaw 9130.1. All of those in favor of being read a third time, passed and adopted, 22nd day of November 2021, please signify by raising your hand. And those opposed, please signify. Okay, and the motion is adopted with Trustee Duncan, McNally, Painter, and Whitaker opposed. We'll now go to H, Bylaw 9130.2, Operations Policy and Planning Committee. Revised Bylaw 9130.2, the Operations Policy and Planning Committee be read a third time, passed and adopted 22nd day of November 2021. And finally, I want to turn to rights holders and stakeholders if they have any other additional input for the board to consider. Okay, seeing and hearing none, can I have a motion to move this motion, please? Trustee Leonard and Trustee Hensa. Any discussion? Trustee Whitaker, and then
Yeah,
Trustee Painter.
I'm just gonna make the one last comment that I continue to be disappointed that this continues to move forward. I've been challenged many times over the last little bit as to how often this board continues to hear from its rights holders and stakeholders that they don't appreciate and approve the direction that we're going. And with our big ears, we're not listening. So anyway, I just want to express that I am disappointed. I hope things work out better. I want the stakeholders and the rights holders to know I'm listening. But here we go.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Painter, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, well, thank Trustee Hensa for reminding me about the email that was shared. This is the wording, and I am paraphrasing. I'm not intentionally trying to take anything out of context, but I am just giving a brief point. This is from one of the consultants. In a perfect world, your council of the whole would be able to use consensus as a way to advance recommendations to the board table. In my experience, we did not vote at the committee level. We relied on consensus, and if that was not possible, the board would hear the opposing views, recommendations, and would make the final decision. Council of the whole worked for my board at a time when we were fractured. We were able to calmly hear staff and have discussions. If a trustee or trustees held an opposing view to the majority at committee level, that showed up at the board table, and the board, through a vote, made a decision. But the key here is that all trustees felt that their views were taken into account, heard, discussed, and voted on. So I don't believe that we're achieving that by going to with the motion as presented tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Trustee Waters.
Just like to thank Trustee Painter for reading that in, because that is, I think, exactly the spirit of the motion that Angie and I brought forward. And it is absolutely our hope that we can work in that way. And if it would be possible to work together to create consensus and to be in that sort of informal space of listening to each other, then that would be ideal. That's exactly what we want to achieve. So it's my hope that trustees come to this with an open mind and an open heart. It's not about, steamrolling. It's not about a 5-4 split. It's about how do we work together better and make sure that each of us have our perspectives, valued. And most importantly, how do we make sure that our stakeholders and rights holders are able to participate in the most meaningful way at the committee level where we have that freedom to have those discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Waters. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. With all due respect to my board colleagues, from my perspective, I think that if we were trying to achieve through using a committee of the whole model at committee level consensus as a board and work together in a collegial way, then what I would see on the floor tonight would be amendments to bylaws that reflect that. It would be amendments to the bylaw that reflect the intention of the board to operate using a committee of the whole model at standing committee level and to endeavor to reach consensus at standing committee level. I think that that is good advice. I think that that is sound advice. I think that that would encourage an environment whereby a diverse board would have an opportunity to come together, to share insights and to come to compromise. And I think it would also encourage our stakeholders and our rights holders, their participation. And I think that that would be quite an exciting environment to work in, although I recognize that to do that would require time. And so it would require us to be patient and to be okay if a meeting goes, past 8:30 or past 10:30, and to really commit to doing the work that would entail. But I would be excited to be a part of that. As it stands, I can't, again, support the motion on the floor.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Trustee McNally.
Thank you. I'm surprised that this has got this far in some ways, and in other ways, I'm completely not surprised. We could have achieved the same ends by simply using relaxed rules in any meeting without all this bylaw modification. So I won't be supporting this.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Are there any other trustees who have not yet spoken who want to speak to this? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on bylaw 9130.2. Be read a third time, passed and adopted the 22nd day of November 2021. All of those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And all of those opposed, please signify. And the motion carries with trustees Duncan, McNally, Painter, and Whitaker opposed. And so now we will go to question period. I have two questions. Let me just go to them here. Where are we? My apologies, just pulling them up in my email. Okay. That's not it. There we go. So question one, these both come with a relatively long preamble. So I'm going to read the questions because I think the questions get to the point. So the first question is, could Trustee Painter, Chair Ryan Painter, please detail the work he has done since May 17th, 2021 to review internalized and systemic racism and unconscious bias, as well as to repair his relationship with the four houses? So that's a good question. And I want to not appear to be performative in this discussion, because I think in answering this question, I need to fully realize and understand and appreciate the values that the question is bringing. But I don't want to start listing off a litany of things because it's performative, and that's just not what I'm here to do, and I don't think it's appropriate. But what I will say is that the work that I am doing, and I know the work the board and the district are doing, is ongoing, and it's not just very personal for me, but it is becoming more attuned to my biases and the work that I have to do to repair the relationships that have been damaged, and the path that I personally as a trustee am committed to doing, but in this role as board chair, I'm going to continue to do that work. The work doesn't stop because my colleagues have elected me to chair of the board. The work on goes, and it doesn't just continue on to next year, it's lifelong. And the work to repair the harm that has been done and rehabilitate, reestablish those critical rights holder relationships is so important. And I really don't want to be performative. So I'm not going to list off the things that I've done. I'm happy to have private conversations about those, but I'm not going to do it here in public. But I do want to say that the work that I have done and the mindset that I'm in and the work that I've undertaken, I believe is reflective of culturally responsive practices. These practices are determined by the recipients of the service we are providing, and that I am willing to work as hard as I possibly can with the superintendent and the director of Indigenous education on a way to establish good conversations, continue these conversations, be fulsome and do it with a completely, fully open heart, and understand that it's gonna take a long time to undo these unconscious biases that I have. And we all, many, I can't say we all have them, but many of us have them. It's not new to the system that we operate in, but it takes a willingness to understand that you have a lot of work to do, and I have a lot of work to do, and I'm committed to doing that work. So I will go to the next question, which is, again, there is a rather long preamble, but I'll read the question. Will the former Chair Waters and Vice Chair Leonard have an opportunity to update their boards on their resignation at the next Board of Education meeting? Why hasn't the board provided the public with any information regarding the former board chair or vice chair's resignations? I can't speak for Trustee Waters or Trustee Leonard. I put the question there. If either of them would like to respond, they can. But I will not force them or ask them to necessarily do so if they don't feel comfortable doing it here. I can leave the floor open to either of them if they would like, but at that, I will leave it at that. Seeing no further discussions and no further questions in the inbox, we'll go to public disclosure of in-camera items. Record of in-camera Board of Education meeting, October 25th, 2021. And then we had new business, but the new business was withdrawn by Trustee McNally. Do we have any notices of motion? Trustee Whitaker, you did send me a notice of motion, and I feel like I have lost it in my inbox. My apologies. Trustee Whitaker, oh wait, hold on. I believe I have found it. So your notice of motion is that the Board of Education of SD61 reaffirmed their commitment and endorsement of the $10 a day childcare plan. Is that correct, Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
And Trustee Whitaker, just confirming, you want that to be on the next Ed Policy Committee board meeting or a meeting, or the next Board of Education meeting?
Wherever the chair thinks that would be best suited.
I feel like Ed Policy seems like a good place for that. Then we can have the conversation at Ed Policy, and if the committee decides to bring it forward, it can come forward at that point. I hope that's satisfactory if you're okay with that. Okay. And any other notices of motion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll thank all our rights holders and stakeholders for being here tonight and spending their time with us. We're getting out before 10 o'clock. I think that's a good thing. And oh yeah, sorry, Deb, I know you did want to comment on something that was missed earlier in the agenda. Go ahead.
Yes, I did want to thank Soldis for coming to the meeting. Soldis is from Lambert Park. So Soldis has maintained the meeting throughout. So thank you very much for coming and spending your evening with us. I believe you've been at Ed Policy. So we do want to thank you again and appreciate your time that you spent with us tonight as one of the student representatives for the secondary schools.
Thank you, Superintendent Winton, and thank you, Soldis, for coming tonight. Soldis, I saw you unmuted. I don't want to jump in front of you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to be here and just see how everything runs, and just an insight on how the students can also affect just anything that happens within the board.
Thank you very much for coming. Do not be a stranger. We want to hear from you and your colleagues, other students. The work we do is for you, so we want to hear from you. And before I go, there was one more question that was provided here. Can you tell me if and when motions may arise as a result of public presentations tonight? So to the asker of that question, motions can come through various channels. They can come through motions sent to standing committees from trustees. They can come as recommendations, or they can come right to the board. So if trustees do decide to bring motions, tonight you did see a notice of motion brought by Trustee Whitaker, which will be put on the next Ed Policy meeting. Any trustee may bring a motion that they like. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Duncan. All those in favor? And any opposed? Nope, that is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Thank you, presenters.